Hi and welcome to Terry Talks Movies. This time around I've got one movie for you. Umbrella Entertainment have sent me a Blu-ray of a 1980s classic. If you can count a movie made by Canon Films as a classic. It is a lot of fun and I watched it again last night. First time I saw it, maybe the second time I saw it, wasn't that keen on it, but this time around it hit a sweet spot for me. Directed by Gary Goddard. Masters of the Universe. Umbrella have put out a Blu-ray of this and it's pretty sweet. There was a collector's edition which had lobby cards and a booklet and things like that. That sold out really quickly, and they also had some production issues with the discs, and immediately Umbrella told everybody that there were delays, and so this one came in a little bit late. Nonetheless, I'm going to talk about it, and the extras on this are the icing and the cherry on top of the cake. I'll do the disc first and then I'll talk about the movie itself. I'll do the disc first and then I'll talk about the movie itself. Got that beautiful Drew Struzan artwork there, and there's a story to do with that on the extras. Got the usual J card that we get with these, and there's the back of it. If you want to jump ahead, you can freeze frame that and see what the extras are. This is a limited edition of 3500. Inside you've got the slipcover with, on one side you've got the Drew Struzan artwork. On the back you got Dolph Lundgren with a sword. Inside you have alternative artwork, which is still pretty good. And you've got the reversible cover that they have to get rid of the PG rating on the Australian censorship classification. The special features are pretty damn good on this. You've got an audio commentary with the director Gary Goddard, who is fantastic. Sharp memory, knows the movie business intimately, knows what he's doing. He's the sweet spot of the extras on this particular disc. There's an extended interview with Dolph Lundgren, the star of the movie, which was done for Mark Hartley's documentary Electric Boogaloo, which was about Canon Pictures. And this is more extensive than you get in that documentary. There's also an extended interview with the director, Gary Goddard, and with the producer, Ed Pressman, who died recently. Apparently a really good producer in Hollywood, a place that's not known for its good producers. There's an interview with production designer William Stout, co-writer Stephen Tolkien, and special effects supervisor Richard Edlund, who was the best of the best in the 80s. There's Masters of the Universe 2 Tales of the Sequel That Never Was, with filmmaker Alba Pune and others. Behind the Legend archival featurette. Canon Films science fiction and fantasy trailer reel, stills and poster gallery, original theatrical trailer, teaser trailer, and an Easter egg, which I haven't found because I don't look for them. So it's a pretty good little package there, which is deliberately geared for the nostalgia market. People who watched this in the 80s, so people who now will be 40 plus, are going to love this one. It's one of those movies that hits the sweet spot. If you saw it when you were a kid, you loved it, you had the toys by Mattel, and you'd like the target market for this kind of movie. So Umbrella have done a really good job of hitting that market. They've done the same with Ninja Turtles and the Ninja Turtles movies they've released. Just hitting that sweet spot of nostalgia and giving a really premium product when they do. And this one's not too expensive on the Umbrella website at the moment, so it's a good opportunity for people to pick it up. This one, with the archival material, particularly the Electric Boogaloo stuff, is fantastic. So I watched the movie, and this is Dolph Lundgren's first starring role. He'd just come off doing Rocky IV and playing the evil Russian guy who tries to beat up Rocky. And Lundgren's pretty insecure. He's 28 years old. He's not confident in his skills as an actor. He's got a degree. He's an intelligent guy. He's Grace Jones's ex-boyfriend. And there was a kind of balancing act between him and the director Gary Goddard on how much dialogue to let Dolph do, because Dolph had an acting coach with him who was giving him advice contrary to what the director was saying. There was all of that kind of stuff, which is par for the course when you get somebody starting out and they've come from the high level of a Rocky movie to a Canon film, and his acting skills weren't what they became. Later on, Dolph Lundgren became a competent actor. If you see him in the Aquaman movies, he gives a gravitas to King Nereus, the character he plays in those movies. But in this one, he's insecure, and as Lundgren himself says in the interviews, he was 28 going on 18. He was immature as hell, and he admits that. He's a man who's got a good sense of self-reflection, and the fact that he's willing to say that makes me like him even more. The Kingdom of Eternia is threatened by Skeletor, the evil guy played by Frank Langella, He-Man and Teela and Man-at-Arms, and a dwarf called Gwildor played by Billy Barty, the famous and wonderful Billy Barty, get transported to Earth, and they've got to try to get back to Eternia to save Eternia and the sorceress of Castle Grayskull from Skeletor, who's going to get all the power in the universe if they don't get back by Moonrise. So they meet up with a couple, one of whom is Courtney Cox, the other one is played by one of the guys who was in Star Trek Voyager. And Gwildor has created a cosmic key, which is kind of like a synthesizer that lets you travel through time and space. And so Skeletor sends a bunch of his minions over to Earth to grab the cosmic key, to kill He-Man and all of the others, and yada yada yada, all the usual stuff you get in this kind of movie in the 1980s. So in a sense, it's a little bit by the book, but it's also a little bit quirky. Courtney Cox was very young at the time, and she plays the ingenue quite sweetly. You also get Chelsea Field playing Teela, and a few years later Chelsea Field had a really sweet role, a bit of a thankless role, but a sweet role, playing Bruce Willis's wife in The Last Boy Scout, which is one of my favourite movies of that period, one of my favourite action movies of that period particularly. She's in there as well, and I kind of like Chelsea Field as an actress, but she doesn't get a hell of a lot to do in this one. She's very much in a supporting role. The special effects hold up pretty well. There are a few matte lines, but the special effects in this are ambitious. You've got the portal going between Eternia and Earth. You've got a lot of prosthetic makeup done for various characters, including Gwildor and Beastman and a few of the other hench people of Skeletor. You also get Meg Foster playing Evelyn, the evil kind of consort of Skeletor, and she's pretty good in it as well. And then you get Frank Langella playing Skeletor, and Frank Langella's covered in a full face prosthesis, and he's trying to act through the prosthesis with pretty much his eyeballs, because there's even a mouthpiece he can't quite be seen enunciating through. You do see kind of fangy teeth in there, but it's a very difficult piece of makeup to project through. And yet Frank Langella does a fantastic job of it. His Skeletor has a Shakespearean gravitas, and both Langella and the director Gary Goddard worked on the dialogue to give Skeletor's dialogue a push and to make it grandiose and Shakespearean and over the top, and to really land the lines, because they couldn't really rely on Dolph Lundgren, whose acting skills weren't great, but he looked great as He-Man. But they needed to have the villain do the heavy lifting as far as the character's stuff is concerned, and as far as the acting stuff in a way is concerned. And the sweet thing about this particular package is the extended interview with Gary Goddard talks about that, and talks about how a director has to balance off an inexperienced but earnest lead actor with an actor playing the antagonist, and how you balance that out, how you balance the egos, how you make the movie work within those limitations. And there were two other factors as well that worked against Masters of the Universe. The first one was that the budget ran out. Canon Pictures wasn't doing great. Golan and Globus were having trouble with money, and ultimately this was their last big shot at becoming a successful kind of production team. Didn't work particularly. And in fact, just as they were filming the climax, the producers came in and shut down the movie before they'd filmed the climax. And Gary Goddard had to spend $50,000 of his own money in partnership with Golan and Globus, who threw in another $50,000 to get the ending nailed, where Skeletor falls down into the pit. It was a real struggle for the director to get the movie to have any kind of ending. So that's one of the problems they had. The other problem was the movie started getting made, and when it was made, the arse fell out of the market for the Mattel Masters of the Universe toys, in the same way that all of these things are cyclic. The Masters of the Universe toys were falling off a cliff as far as their popularity was concerned, and so the built-in audience for the IP wasn't necessarily going to be there, and the merch that they were planning on selling for the movie wasn't really landing because the kids had moved on to Ninja Turtles and probably Transformers as well. So the cyclic nature of the toy industry knocked this one on the arse as well. So there's all these interesting stories about the limitations that were imposed upon the production of the movie, which makes this particular version a really good one to have, because those stories are at least as interesting as the movie. And just seeing how the negotiations had to be done and the subtle bits of work that people on the production had to do to get stuff landed and to make it work in spite of the usual Hollywood bullshit makes this a saga in just the production itself. And I found that really interesting. Yeah, the movie is pretty much 1980s action-adventure product, but the behind-the-scenes stories makes the fact that they got as much as they did on the screen a much more interesting thing. I mean, I love the fact that the extras on this particular disc give you all of that context and give you all of that interesting stuff about how it was done. And this is something that Umbrella do really, really well. They'll take something which is a second-rate movie, to be honest, and because they add the extras and they particularly choose the extras that they add, you get a lot more from the movie and a lot more from the package of having the physical media than you would if somebody was just ticking and flicking and putting the disc out with just a trailer on it. There's much, much more here, and that is the value added that boutique physical media companies like Umbrella do to sell the product, and rightly so. It's an education in how movies were made in the late 1980s, just having this disc. And thank you very much to Umbrella Entertainment for A, putting it out, and B, giving me a copy so that I could appreciate this movie in a fresh light by seeing it. It really landed better for me than I was expecting it to be honest. And I'm grateful for that. But I got one more thing for you, so just hold your thoughts there. In my last video, I expressed my support for the LGBTQIA plus community in Pride Month when I was talking about entertaining Mr. Sloan. And I got a lot of support from people for the stance I took on supporting rainbow people. But I also got a comment on the video, which I found kind of interesting. Somebody with a very generic username, and I'm not even going to read it out because it's just one of those default usernames that comes up when you create an account, said this after I expressed my support for Pride Month in particular. The Bible calls homosexuality sin. I'm out, which means they're unsubscribing from the channel. And then they add this little fillip in the end. Nice beard, but the little yellow spot on your shirt is distracting. So first off, homophobic stuff. Second off, they like my beard. Third off, they complain because I had a spot of food on my shirt. I didn't notice. Normally I get middle-aged geek girl to check my shirt to make sure I don't have anything on it. This time I didn't. I'm a messy eater. I'm probably always going to be that. So I replied to them, and this is what I said. If you obey the Bible, do you also travel outside your village to poo? Deuteronomy 23:12-14. Because it actually says you have to go outside your village or your encampment to drop a dookie. And then I said, or you're just using Iron Age text to justify your prejudice and fear. And that's pretty much the approach I'm taking on this. Anti-rainbow people who use Christianity as an excuse are using it as a shield for their own prejudices. There are people I know who are very devout Christians and who support or are part of the rainbow community. And they're some of my best friends, and they're some of the channel's most loyal supporters. I will continue to support LGBTQIA plus people. I always will. And this channel, being an extension of me, will do so as well. So if you've got any opinions like that and you're not comfortable with what I say on the channel, please leave. I don't mind that you do, but you don't necessarily have to tell me when you go. You can if you like, and I'll probably mock you. I'm always for the underdog. It's an instinctive thing for me. Particularly people who are treated poorly in society. I will always support them. And the other thing is, that video did crazy well. It skyrocketed. It went off like a mortar firework. And I got about 60 or 70 extra subscribers just from that one video in 3 or 4 days. So being on the side of the angels is probably doing the channel well, or it may well just be a coincidence, but I sincerely hope it isn't. So on that optimistic note, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate the support the channel gets. If you want to support the channel, you can subscribe, you can hit the notification bell, you can give this video a thumbs up, and let me know what you think of Masters of the Universe, and whether you're going to get the disc from Umbrella. I'll post a link in the description. You can also support the channel by donating at patreon.com/TerryTalksMovies. Next up, we're going back to Science Fiction Saturday again. Monday's video is going to be the live stream, the one that comes out Sunday, Monday. So I've got another live stream for you, which is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying the channel, and there's some interesting films coming out. There's some interesting films I'm rediscovering as well. So all of this is going lovely at the moment. So until I put out more loveliness, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies, watch some 1980s action films you might have half forgotten, and I'll catch you next time.